Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for coming. My name is Christina Chavez Wyatt, and I'm the Executive Director of the San Benito County Business Council. And I'd like to welcome you to what we're going to be calling our first annual Water Information Forum, a comprehensive panel of information and specialists for our community, for our businesses, and for our future. I'd like to kick off our program by thanking our event sponsors, Bianchi Casavan and Pope. Dan Recht is here today. Dassel's Petroleum, Graham Mackey and Jim Dassel. Gavilan College, Steve Kinsella. M&M Plant Sales, Marcy Houston. Pacific Scientific, Larry Barr. San Benito County Farm Bureau, Rich Bianchi and Mindy Sotelo, thank you. Sierra Pacific Associates, Ken Lindsay, and Viola Water NA, Jose Rodriguez, thank you very much for your support of this event. This event was a culmination and a collaboration, and the way we put it together was over the past year or two, in every public forum, in every business council meeting, et cetera, water has been a great topic of ours. The drought, et cetera, how water is assessed and used within our community, and how it's a great value and an asset here. And that is the reason why we've come together with our partners to put together this information forum. So without further ado, I'd also like to welcome and acknowledge our elected officials. We have Reed Sanders here for the District Director of Senator Anthony Canella. Thank you for coming. And our supervisors, Margie Barrios and Jerry Munzer. Thank you very much for coming. We also have several appointed officials here, Water District Board members, et cetera. I'd also like to thank our Vice Presidents of the Business Council for attending today, Bob Tiffany from Tiffany Motor Company, Graham Mackey from Dassel's Petroleum, and Scott Fuller from San Juan Oaks Golf Club. Our first panel of speakers we have are from local water agencies who are going to be giving an update presentations, and following their panel of presentations, we're going to be having some Q&A. If you would like to pose a question, please stand to the left of the room and utilize the microphone, because we do have our presenting sponsor, our media sponsor, CMAP, Community Media Access Partnership, that is recording this so that we have it on their live streaming video and also later on YouTube. So our first panelist I'd like to welcome is Jeff Catano, District Manager from the San Benito County Water District. Jeff?
Good morning. Thanks for coming this morning. What I'd kind of like to do this morning is kind of give you an overview of our water supply that we have in the county, kind of some background of what the conditions are and some of the issues that we have, then kind of move into how we're going to be working with our water supply, what it takes to balance the basin, and then kind of move from there into some of the issues that we have with our imported water supply. So let's see if we can make this work. There we go. Okay, so again, our topic discussions, I'm going to work through from the San Benito County Water District's perspective, and then Harry Bloom is going to come in and give you an update on the Hollister Urban Area Project. From there, we're going to turn it over to Don Ridenauer to give you a perspective from the Sunnyslope County Water District, and then Sean from the Water Resource Association is going to kind of give you an update and some ideas about what we're doing from the conservation perspective. Okay. If there we go. Oh, no. All right. And I apologize. This is a big room, and the slides some of them might be kind of difficult to see. I'll try to explain what's going on. But just from our groundwater perspective, the amount of groundwater that we have in our basin, if you use kind of a perspective of what San Luis Reservoir holds, San Luis Reservoir holds about 2 million acre feet. Our groundwater basin here has about a usable space of about 500,000 acre feet. So there's quite a bit of storage in our groundwater basin, and that's one of the things that's helped us get through this drought period that we're in right now. And I'll kind of go into that in a few minutes. Just to get an idea from what our groundwater basin is, again, from the 500,000 acre foot that we have in our groundwater basin, we've got in our local storage reservoirs only about 43,000 acre feet. So Our groundwater basin is actually very important for our water supply, and that's why the San Benito County Water District has worked so very hard for a very long time to maintain that groundwater basin and come with projects that will help enhance our groundwater supply and help balance it. Some of the issues that we have with our groundwater basin, though, is that, historically, everybody knows that's lived here in Hollister that it's highly mineralized. One of the problems that we have with that, and there's nothing that we can do about it, is it's essentially a closed basin. Everything that comes into this basin stays in the basin. The only place that there's any water that actually leaves the basin is through the Chittenden Gap and at the end of San Juan Valley. The river system that we have that brings primarily historically that's recharged the basin, the San Benito River system is highly mineralized. It's built on marine sediments. So all of the water that moves through there that comes into this basin has already got a high mineral content when it actually shows up here. It's the water that moves through the river is generally when it's moving, there's a high volume of water that's moving through there. It's about 500 TDS, but then when the water drops down and you get those late spring flows that actually bring a significant amount of water into the basin, it actually gets up to about 700 TDS is what the water supply is in the river system. So it's highly mineralized. So everything that comes into the basin stays here. That's one of the reasons why we've worked so hard to try to manage the water supply and what goes into the basin, the wastewater flows, that we've worked with the city of Hollister to try to minimize the TDS and the nitrates that are coming into the basin, because it all stays here. Unlike a lot of other basins where you have water that moves in and then moves back out again and flows through, it helps to flush the basin out and keep the water supply a little bit cleaner. That doesn't happen here. It's basically, it stays in here. So you can see that kind of that gap, that lip at the Chittenden Gap, there's a geologic formation where it comes up and it basically creates almost like a dam that keeps the water from moving through and preventing it from leaving. One of the good things about that is that it helps when it does help keep the water supply high in the basin too. All right, so getting kind of to where we are right now with the drought. I know this is going to be very difficult for you to see. Sean, you did have a laser pointer someplace, right? Oh, here it is. Okay. What I wanted to show you, we don't have the speaker, but our basin actually hasn't dropped significantly, even though we've had in the last 3 or 4 years, a below average water supply. Oh, you can take it up. Good. All right, thanks. So the only real issues that we're seeing right now is here in San Juan Valley. From 2008 to about 2014, it's dropped in right around the Lucy Brown, Bixby area about 40 feet, which isn't really a huge amount. If you go back to the mid-70s, it was about 150 feet deeper than it is today. So there's still a significant amount of water in there that it hasn't dropped. Where we are seeing the biggest drop is right in here. It's on the other side of the Calaveras Fault over in the Balsa area. And that's primarily because the water supply for that area has to come from the Pacheco. It moves through this way, and then it hits that Calaveras Fault, and then it backs up there. That's why if you live out on Lover's Lane, historically it's always had high groundwater there and issues. It's because the water that's moving from Pacheco is coming up against that fault, and it has to come up and over the top of the fault or move through, and it creates like a barrier there that keeps the water from moving through. The other place that we get water from in that Balsa area is the water that moves from southern Santa Clara County and into the basin there. We also don't have the advantage of having the San Felipe system in that area, so that's one of the areas that's most impacted right now from the water supply perspective. Again, this one's going to be hard for you to see, but I'll go through it for you. So for our countywide water demand and supply, for an average year for the municipal area, we use about 9,000 acre-feet of water. On the agricultural side in the basin, it takes about 35,000 acre-feet. to be able to supply all the demand. Our federal contract that we have with the Bureau of Reclamation is a total of 43,800 acre-feet of water, but it's been a very long time since we've gotten a full contract amount on both our ag and our M&I side. On the M&I side, the contract amount is 8,250 acre-feet, and on the ag side, it's 35,550 acre-feet. The municipal allocation for 2015 was only 25% of that 8,250, and for our ag side, it was zero, and it was also zero in 2014. We've been fortunate enough to be able to deliver some water to the agricultural customers in 2014 and 15. That's primarily because the district had the foresight to be able to start storing water back in 2010 and 11 when we had a water supply in excess of what the demand was. And we started storing water in outside water agencies and then transfers that we had with Santa Clara Valley Water District. In addition to that, we've been using San Justo to kind of carry water from one year to the next. So we've been able to supply the agricultural customers with a small amount of water, not everything that they've wanted, but we've still been able to maintain some water supply for them. The important part about this is that in order for us to keep this basin balanced, it takes about 20,000 acre-feet of water a year of imported water. What's over and above what we naturally receive from our rainfall and percolation in the streams. So without that San Felipe water supply, we would be back like where we were in 1975 at 150, 200 feet below where we are today. And we'd have significant problems with our water supply. So kind of give you an idea, and again, this is going to be difficult for you to see, but historically, if you go back about 8 years to 2008, our allocations on average, and again, it's going to be difficult for you to see, but I'll read it to you. Our allocations for agriculture over that period of time was only 29% of our contract amount, and on the M&I side, it was 66%. So the total average supply that we've got during that period of time has been 10,300 acre-feet on an annual basis for the agricultural customers, and 3,660 acre-feet for the M&I customers on average. As you can see, if it's going to take 20,000 acre-feet of water a year to balance this, over the last 8 years, we've had a 6,000 acre-foot deficit each year that we've had to try to manage. And so at some point, we've got to try to figure out how to make that up. All right, so on this slide, kind of wanted to get to where we are currently with our federal water supply. As everybody knows, we've had some major issues with droughts, and all of the state reservoirs are fairly drawn down, or very drawn down. Currently, right now, what we have in storage, and these are as of typically as of this period in time, for each year. For the 15-year average for the storage for water supply in the federal system, and this is the federal system only because that's where we get our water from, there's normally on the 15-year average about 6 million acre-feet of water in storage at this point in time each year. This year, we have less than 3 million acre-feet, which is about 48% of the historical 15-year average. It's important to note here, too, that the total storage for the federal system is a little over 11 million acre-feet, and right now we have less than 3 million acre-feet in storage. So it's pretty, the issue is pretty severe for us trying to figure out how we're going to manage it. And everybody's looking, this year that an El Nino is going to help get us out of the drought and solve our problems. It's going to help. But we are so far behind in our water supply in the state, in our reservoirs, that even if we get an El Nino this year, our initial allocation for agriculture, and I don't want you guys to fall out of your chairs on the ag side, is going to be zero. We're hoping that by the end of the season that we're going to get up to maybe 15 or 20%. And that's a big issue for us. We do have, and I've got a growers meeting that we're trying to put together, and I believe it's next week or the week after that Ann's putting it together for us. I've got a growers meeting to get the growers to come in and sit down and go over some water supply options that I have for them. We've been able to secure some extra water. It's probably going to be about 4,000 or 5,000 acre feet that I was able to secure, but it's going to be very expensive water. Some of that water I've had to pay over $1,100 an acre foot to be able to get it. And that's, when you're looking at the normal agricultural cost of water being $170 to $180 an acre foot, that's some pretty expensive water. But again, we have to do whatever we can because we've got that 20,000 acre feet of water a year that we have to be able to bring in to balance the basin. So we have to do whatever we can, bring all of the water we can, even if it's expensive, and bring it into the basin to help keep it balanced. It's kind of gives some background of why we're in a situation that we are today. Everybody drives by San Luis Reservoir and they're seeing, well, look, there looks like there's a fair amount of water in San Luis Reservoir. What's been happening is that right now, almost all of that water that's sitting in San Luis Reservoir is state water. It's a joint project between the state and the federal side, and we share about 50% of the storage capacity in there. But what's been happening, the Bureau has been so far behind on their water supply, and they have obligations that they have to meet to other contractors because of the way that they've set their system up, that they have contractual obligations to deliver a certain amount of water regardless of what the water supply is in any particular year. One of those is the San Joaquin Exchange contractors. When they built the Friant system, they effectively cut off the water supply from the San Joaquin River to a lot of those contractors over there, and they had to make an agreement with them to exchange water that came through the delta. And so in doing that, they've got a contractual obligation to deliver a certain amount of water to those customers, regardless if there would be water flowing down the San Joaquin River or not. So what's happened is, and you can see in this slide here, and it's difficult to see, but these blue areas and the blue and the orange are basically water that the state has borrowed. And the state has borrowed water from us, and not the state, but the federal side has borrowed water from us and the state. And so all of the water that they're pumping right now, all the way through December, is generally going to be going back to pay back what they borrowed to be able to deliver to their other customers. Normally during this period of time, San Luis Reservoir would be filling, and it would be filling with water that was going to be going to the allocations for next year for ag and M&I customers. But this year, because they're so far behind and they borrowed so much, everything that they're going to be able to pump basically through December is going to pay back what they borrowed from everybody else. So we won't be getting any new water supply to be able to deliver to our customers in our allocation until after December, when they start pumping in January, February, and March. That's why when I told you that we're looking at a 0% allocation initially, and they usually come out with that allocation at the end of February, is that there's no water. There's no water for the Bureau to commit to be able to deliver to us on the agricultural side. So we're hoping that, yes, there is going to be an El Nino, that there's going to be a sufficient water flowing through the San Joaquin River and runoff, and that's where a lot of that water will come from that they were able to pump in January, February, and March as actual runoff into the delta, that will be able to pick up some of that water supply. So for moving on to the Hollister urban area project, kind of give you an overview of where our water supply is going to be coming for that project. We're not counting on just the federal project to be able to deliver water to the Hollister urban area project. We're putting about $40 million collectively between all of the agencies into building those two treatment plants. So we wanted to make sure that we had an adequate water supply to be able to deliver that. You don't want to spend $40 million building treatment plants and not have water for it. So what we've been doing, we've got projects that we've been working on to try to supplement the water supply. One of the things that we did was we went back to the Bureau of Reclamation and actually increased our M&I amount that we were going to get allocated each year, and that was up to the full 8,250 acre feet. So there'll be a percentage of that depending upon the water supply. But prior to that negotiation, we were down at about 5,000 acre feet. So we increased it significantly to help augment this project. That took about a year and a half of negotiation with the Bureau to be able to get them to see from our perspective of that we needed that water and to be able to demonstrate that we should have gotten that water and because of our contractual obligations. The other areas that we're looking at is, again, we're going to be using the outside banking. We've got water stored down in Wasco in a place called Semi-Tropic Water Storage Agency. There's water that we have stored down there. There's about a year's worth of water for the Hollister Urban Area project that I have stored down there right now. In addition to that, we're going to be looking at a local banking project where we're going to be able to, in years when there's additional water supply that we can't use, that there's more than we can use, we're looking at a local banking project up in the Pacheco area where we will put water into the basin and then extract it back out, much like they do in other water areas where they're banking their water. And then again, so that's kind of where our water supply for the Hollister Urban Area project is going to come from. We've also got other agreements that I've been able to negotiate with other agencies that on an annual basis that there's additional water supply available, but it depends. Most of those agreements depend on what the actual water year is like. So in a severe drought or below average, the amount of water that I've got available in those years is less. So that's why these local projects and the other banking things are going to be important. We'll be using those when the water supply we've got extra water, banking it, putting it away, storing it in San Justo, and then rolling that stuff forward to be able to supply. Basically what we're looking at is about 6,000 acre feet a year is what the demand is going to be out about 2020 to be able to deliver to the Hollister urban area. So, Harry, I'm going to turn it over to Harry now, and he's going to give you an update on the Hollister urban area. Right is forward, left is go back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jeff. All right, I'd like to preface all of this by saying that we're going to give you an overview of the Hollister Urban Area Water Project. And this has been quite a few years in its development. I joined the project in 2004, and we're in 2011, and we've got some things built, but we're still working on it. So the Hollister urban area is the area that's defined on this map. And it goes north and encompasses the airport and goes south and picks up the Sunnyslope County Water District area, and then it goes to the east as it's shown here. And generally speaking, to get you oriented, that vertical line on the right is Fairview Road. So that's the definition of the Hollister urban area. And it was created in 2004, 2005. And it was based upon the general plans of all of the agencies that are involved. And the agencies are San Benito County Water District, that's the one that was described by Jeff, that's countywide. The Sunnyslope County Water District, which is the area to the south, the City of Hollister, and then San Benito County Water District. San Benito County itself has been part of our planning processes, and we've incorporated some of their general plan activities to define their urban area. So the state controls our water basin quality through regulations, and I've met with lots of groups like this, and people say, well, why not fight the state? And the short answer is, you'll never win. So what we're doing is we have the Regional Water Quality Control Board that has dictated waste discharge requirements to protect our groundwater basin. We shouldn't argue with that. As Jeff pointed out, that's a very, very strong asset in this county. Both the city and Sunnyslope must meet those waste discharge requirements. Sunnyslope is coming into compliance, but it's still out of compliance because of nitrates and some other salts. There's no fines involved because we have a plan in place. We're working closely with the State Water Resources Control Board, but we have to continue. The city of Hollister is out of compliance since January 2015, but with the projects that I'll describe later, they will come into compliance, and the state knows that. So here are our projects. We've upgraded the less saltwater treatment plant. That's the one that you see on Fairview Road. And it's right in the middle of the construction of the new housing development there. But it was completed and up and running in January 2015. It was a set of upgrades required by state mandate because of things called disinfection byproducts that result from the chlorination of water. And all of those things were undertaken by the partners, and the upgrade is completed, and it's up and running and delivering good quality water. The Fairview pipeline also was completed at the same time, and that delivers water into what's called the Sunnyslope high pressure zone, and it deals with the area to the south of the plant. We have a construction of a 4.5 MGD water treatment plant. Construction starts on September 21st. Contract has been awarded to a well-qualified contractor called Auburn Construction out of Sacramento, and the award for that was a $23 million construction contract. And then last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about the implementation of the chromium-6 mitigation solution. I'll introduce it here and talk about it a bit more later on, but the state has promulgated some regulations that require that the water supply have a chromium-6 component that is less than 10 parts per billion. And in order to put that into perspective, about 15 years ago, we couldn't even measure parts per billion. But now that we can, we now have a regulation that we comply with. All right, so what I'd like to say on this slide is that the Hollister Urban Area Project is, in many ways, it is water quality driven, and that's state mandated, but it's also health and safety mandated. But equally important is a reliable water supply, and that is what Jeff was talking about in his background on the supplies for the M&I area. So when we began the master planning and ultimately the implementation, those are the two drivers. Good quality water for the community that supports a viable community, a healthy community, and a reliable water supply. We don't want to run out of water. And our mantra was we want it to be locally financed and affordable because we want to maintain control. Well, we have to follow the mandates of the state. We want it to be locally controlled. So the chromium-6 issue is very difficult because up until now, we had not been following a regulation for chromium-6. And those of you that saw the film Aaron Bogovich, you'll know that it was chromium-6 that was the issue at Kettleman. And it was much more severe there than we're looking at. And it was a hazardous waste in that case. In our case, it's naturally occurring chromium-6. We always had a regulation for total chromium, which was 100 parts, but the new regulation is 10 parts per billion for chromium-6. And the city of Hollister supply is far and away the one that's most affected in the groundwater. And that shows, this slide shows those 4 wells that the city uses, and all of them are out of compliance. So the chromium-6 content is shown there on the far right, and they range from 13.5 up to 15 parts per billion. So they're not wildly out of compliance, but out of compliance. So our job is to assist the city in bringing their wells into compliance. So we looked at several alternatives, and these were presented to the City Council at its last regular meeting. And we looked at these alternatives, and the alternative one that we had hoped would be satisfactory, and that is pick the wells, analyze the zones that are contributing chromium-6, and perhaps be able to block those off and just continue to use the wells, but block off the zones that are the bad actors. As we could probably have predicted, that was optimistic, and it does not appear that that is in any way going to work, because the chromium-6 issue, as it's naturally occurring, is distributed throughout the entire zone of the wells. Alternative 2 is treatment of the groundwater at the wellhead. It's very expensive. Alternative 3 is blending with treated surface water, and alternative 4 was some combination. So we looked at all those, we costed them out, and the short answer is the recommended solution is to blend with the high-quality imported water that's treated through the 2 treatment plants, less salt, and the new West Hills water treatment plant that I mentioned that we're starting construction will deliver water through pipelines that we had already planned to include because we were going to reduce the salt content throughout the communities. And the upshot of it is that the recommended solution is to put in those 2 yellow lines that will deliver water to the wellheads. You have to treat the water or blend the water at the wellhead before the people see it or drink it. And then extend what was called the Crosstown Pipeline, which is I think it's shown in purple there. And those were already planned. So if we look at the costs, this is a $7 million solution versus a $25 million solution if we go to wellhead treatment. So it's a kind of a no-brainer. And of that $7 million, we had already planned to spend about $4.5 million of pipeline development anyway. So the upshot of this is that the solution is that we're going to take advantage of what we had already planned to do. It is cleaner environmentally because the wellhead treatment involves ion exchange, like water softener is only using a resin, and you have to do something with the spent materials. You have to dispose of them, and it's a waste that is sometimes difficult to dispose of. So we think we have a clean solution. The City of Council has agreed to it, and we'll begin implementing that quickly. The date for this is that the state has just passed a law that was sponsored by ACWA, the Association of California Water Agencies, that gives us about 4 years to implement this project. So the answer to our problems is we began planning about 2004. We're now implementing our plans, and we're dealing with the water quality and water reliability issues as they occur. And the agencies are cooperating closely on this and are very, I'd say, aggressively dealing with the state mandated issues. So we have Sunnyslope, Don, that will be Don Reidenauer, the general manager of Sunnyslope County Water Agency, will give you the perspective of a water agency.
Oh, thank you. Which ones is it? On the right?
Right is
Okay.
forward, left is back.
Okay. Good morning. So you've heard, the big picture countywide. You've heard about the Hollister Urban Area Water Project that Sunnyslope's a partner in, along with City and San Benito County Water District. So I'll give you just a little background about Sunnyslope, kind of how we fit in the picture, where our water supplies, are coming from specifically, and kind of our share of that project. I'm not representing the city here, but our numbers are real similar to the city, and I'll touch on some of their issues also. So Sunnyslope's a district that has been in existence since 1954, so about 60 years. We've serve a population of just over 19,000 people. We have about 5,500 water customers, about 1,200 sewer customers. We only provide wastewater treatment services to the development of Ridgemark, Quail Hollow, and Oak Creek. So the rest of the area, the majority of the area in our water service area, that sewer service is provided by the City of Hollister. This is a map of our district. The darker color is Sunnyslope's district. The lighter tan is the city's water service area. We work, while we're two separate agencies, we are working in partnership in a lot of ways. We have 5 interties, so we are able to move water back and forth between our two agencies. And as Harry mentioned and Jeff mentioned, we're partners in a lot of large water projects together. You've seen this slide. This is just a good slide to show our water supplies. Sunnyslope's it is a combination of surface water and well water. The 4 dark dots kind of in the lowest part of the slide south of the Hollister conduit are Sunnyslope's wells, or actually there's a 5th one just above the Hollister conduit. So we have 5 wells. The city has 4 supply wells. And then we pull water off the Hollister conduit and treat it at the saltwater treatment plant, which is located about where there's about a 90-degree bend in the Hollister conduit where Hollister conduit is labeled. So our typical demand right now, we're about 1/3 of our water is imported surface water, about 2/3 is groundwater. And as Harry mentioned, we're trying to change that to improve our water quality, improve our drinking water quality to our customers, but also improve our wastewater quality coming into both the city's wastewater treatment plant and Sunnyslope's wastewater plant to meet state water quality regulations of what we discharge from those wastewater plants. So we're looking to change that to 50 to 60, go 2/3, like 65 to 70% surface water and 30 to 35% groundwater in the future. You can see our annual water demand. It's been as high as about 3,000 acre feet a year. Right now, We're actually going to be below 2014 was about 2,500 acre feet. We're seeing significant reductions with the drought and our water conservation efforts. You can see our higher years, we've actually had higher years prior to 2010. So our water conservation efforts over the years has really reduced our overall demand, even though we've continued to grow a little bit. And I'll get into the development issues here in a minute. So our water conservation efforts, not a lot of fun to have a drought when you're a water manager. The good years, your good customers are those big high-using water customers. You like those customers in normal and wet years. And unfortunately, you have to go to those customers and ask them to cut heavily in dry years. In 2014, we were just under a voluntary program, and we weren't real aggressive about our water conservation message. And we asked for 15% conservation, and we got 14 for the year. So we did pretty well. We essentially reached our target. Unfortunately, the spring of this year, the state decided statewide we weren't conserving enough water, and they placed mandates on all of us for all water agencies throughout the state. They based those mandates on a goal of reaching 25% conservation throughout the state, but those mandates varied by agency depending on your water use and your per capita water use. Sunnyslope is largely a single-family residential type of customer base. Our water use is a little higher per capita than some, so our target, our mandate was 28%. The cities was the 20%, 22%. So their per capita, they're a little denser community than ours. They're pretty similar in population, but they're a little denser developed than we are, so their mandate was slightly less than the cities. We're partnering with the city on our conservation efforts through the Water Resources Association, so we try to keep our messages the same and our targets the same, but our mandate was slightly larger. We're meeting that goal, fortunately. We're down 26% since January 1. The state's mandate didn't kick in until June, and we're averaging about 36% since June 1st. So we're doing quite well. It's not helping the bottom line, though. That's why water agencies don't like droughts. But it's something that we need to do. And as Jeff pointed out, we're in a deficit situation with our basin and have been for a number of years. So conservation is important. Kind of the hot topic. At least for me, I get a lot of questions. I know my board members get a lot of questions about development and its impact on our water supplies. And why are we allowing development in this community when we're in a drought and we're mandating conservation? Current development activity, and this is just in Sunnyslope's district, is about 340 homes or lots, potential homes could be built in Sunnyslope. Those are under projects that are under construction right now. I don't expect all those to hit all at once. You hear a lot of comments about, the Santana Ranch development east of Fairview Road, is 1,100 home development, and oh my gosh, we can't handle that. Well, that's not in 1 year. Our agreement with Santana Ranch has over 6 or 7 years. I think realistically it might take 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 years for that project to build out. But right now, under construction and approved, they have 155 units under construction. So we're looking at about 340 units, I think, in the next maybe 2 to 3 years. That build-out time frame's really not dependent on Sunnyslope. It's dependent on the real estate market and what's the demand for new housing. And I might point out, water agencies, we're not land use agencies. We don't determine, projects. Really, we see our job as planning for providing water and wastewater services to the development that it is planned for by counties and cities. So our job, we look at it, is to go out and find water and to develop facilities to serve that planned development in your community, not to be the one to control that development. Which is why, as Harry mentioned, we're working on this Hollister Urban Area Water Project. We're starting an update to our water master plan for this community in partnership with San Benito County Water District and the city of Hollister. And we're trying to, estimate what kind of development we're going to see for the next 10 to 15 years, and start looking at what do we need to do to respond to that development so we can provide those services. And very importantly, we need to look at our impact fees and make sure that development is truly paying their share of the cost of the facilities that are being built to serve them, and the water supply that we're out pursuing and trying to find to serve those new homes. So I just wanted to hit this. This is a hot issue for us. We haven't seen these kind of numbers. We keep expecting development to take off here. We're averaging about 30 to 40 homes per year right now. We expect that to increase, but we're waiting to see how much development's really going to happen, how fast those homes sell, and how many homes we really see connecting to our water system. So the next speaker is Sean Novak. Sean is with the Water Resources Agency. He manages our water conservation efforts for all of us, for the City of Hollister, for Sunnyslope County Water District, for San Benito County Water District, and San Juan Bautista.
Okay, I think I got this. Good morning, everybody. Like Don said, for those who don't know me, my name's Sean Novak. I operate the Water Resources Association of San Benito County. It's a big name for a little agency. It's just me, and I got a 3/4 time person. So we represent the 4 different urban water agencies around here. We operate all the water conservation programs, water resource protection programs, and we also work on some planning documents for the agencies as well. So first of all, I really want to congratulate our community for doing so well in our water conservation. As Jeff was talking about, going forward here, it's all about a diverse water supply portfolio. And, we have groundwater, we have surface water, we have recycled water. We're going to use water banking some of that water. And conservation plays into that role because it's all about efficiency, like, how well we use that water. Are we efficient with it? And here in our urban area, in the late 90s, water use was about 220 gallons per person per day here in the Hollister urban area. And, it seems like a lot of water. That's for your outdoor use, your indoor use, cooking, cleaning, showering. Well, we're hoping this year we're working on a water management plan. We've been gradually decreasing that amount, and we're hoping to get to about 150 gallons per person per day in the Hollister urban area. And I think it's going to be less because of our drought and the mandates telling people to conserve water more. So we are getting more efficient. I want to show you the reason why we focus on some of our programs. We have all types of rebate programs and services, but this right here represents your indoor residential water use for a home that does not have low-flow fixtures in it. And as you can see, the toilet, if you have one before 1992, uses almost 27% of your water indoors. Then you have the clothes washer. If you have a traditional top loader, one of those older ones, they use about 40, 50 gallons of water per load. That's another almost 22%. And then you see leaks here, it's 13%. So that's over half your water use if you look at those 3 items right there. So that's why we focus on the toilet replacement program. My agency has seen about over 8,000 toilets replaced in the Hollister urban area. So that's about 80% saturation, so we're getting up on that. And then the clothes washers, we're seeing, the EPA has made more efficiency standards for these clothes washers. So we're seeing the water use for these clothes washers drop. And we'd like to encourage that by offering a $100 rebate to people because they're still a little higher price than your traditional washers. And then the main thing is leaks. A lot of people think, hey, I'm going to hear a leak if there's one in my house. That's not always the case. So one of the services that my agency provides is Leo Vasquez, the water conservation assistant, will go out to people's homes, will show you how to read your meter, and each meter that's in the Hollister urban area has a leak detector on there. Now, if you're not using water inside, not operating any appliances, if you go look at your meter and that little leak detector is moving, you got a leak. So we'll be glad to come out there, try to help you locate it. If it's something simple, like let's say a toilet flapper is worn out and you're leaking water through your toilet, we can replace that for you free of charge. And with our hard water around here, those soft rubber flappers tend to get eaten away after about 5-6 years. So those need to be checked. And one way you can do it at home is you put a little food coloring in the tank at night before you go to sleep. If you wake up in the morning and it's in the bowl, you got a leak. So give us a call and we'd be glad to replace that for you. But That's, it's not like we're made up these rebate programs. I mean, you can see why we focus on that. Now, one of the main things we're really focusing on is residential water use that's used for landscapes. Because as you can see here, over 50% of residential water use is for landscape irrigation. And of that amount, when we go out and look at these homes, over 50% of that water is wasted due to bad equipment, bad irrigation scheduling, things of that nature. So we try to educate people. First of all, we'll do an irrigation audit, make sure that your system's running right. We can give you recommendations, make adjustments, and then we try to give you an irrigation schedule when we're not under these mandates, to follow throughout the year. And one of the main things people can do, and I see this happen a lot, is in the winter when we start getting in our rainy season, just turn that irrigation system off. And a lot of these irrigation controllers have a plug in there that allow you to put in a rain sensor, and we have a rebate program on rain sensors right now if your controller can handle one. And what that does is if we do have a rain event and you happen to forget to set your irrigation controller, it will shut that system down and we do have a rain event. So, there's two things in water conservation. There's either technology to help us use water more efficiently with, higher efficient appliances, toilets, things like that, and then personal habits, the way we use water personally, like turning off the water when you're brushing your teeth or shaving. So we try to tell people about all those ways to do it. But I wanted to show you, when you throw in the landscape irrigation, look how much in a residential use the landscaping uses. And that's why we've really been focused. We had a turf removal program, which everybody really responded to really well. We were funded $100,000 in July. Unfortunately, we depleted that funding about midway through August. But just at that same time that we depleted our funding, the state came up with a program. So there still are funds on a state level available to people that didn't take advantage of our local funding to take out turf. And it's not that I'm anti-turf. It's like, if you have kids and dogs, you need some turf area for them to play in and enjoy. What I don't like is when you see these homes, they'll just roll out turf around the whole thing because it's easy. You can roll it out. And the thing is about turf is in our area, to keep it green and lush, you need over 60 inches of water a year to keep that green and lush. And here locally, on an average year, we get 11 to 13 inches of rain. So we really try to encourage people to plant climate-appropriate plants. And that 11 to 13 inches, as you know, we haven't seen that in a number of years. So the last few years, we've been 5 to 6 inches, so half of that. So, it's important that we plant climate-appropriate plants, use water as efficient as possible. And I don't want it to get lost after this drought. People have been really good about answering the call to cut their water use back, and then we had the regulations in place. But, this is a new era. We have to be efficient with our water use all the time. We have a growing population. Water is a finite resource. Climate change is, the scientists are coming in. It's real. It's happening. I think the only argument is what's causing it. So that's going to change the way the storms come into our area and also affect our water supply throughout the state. So being efficient with our water, not only does it make sense, it's a necessity. So my agency can help people with that, and we're here to help you. So just to go over our programs real quick, I'm going to make this quick. The one I think is the most valuable is this home water survey, because we can go out to your property, meet you in person, see the way you're using water, look at your house, check it for leaks, put on low-flow shower heads, faucet aerators, give you a hose nozzle to use outside, check your irrigation system, and help you use that water as efficiently as possible. And we'll also let you know about rebate programs, because our most famous program is probably the toilet replacement program. We have high-efficiency clothes washer rebates. We're really encouraging people to demolish their water softeners because of the salt problem that the managers were talking about. Just to give you an update on that, Phase 1 went in January, and that good quality water is going to the Quail Hollow, Cielo Vista, and Ridgemark area. And it's much better quality water. Before the project, water was coming in the low 30s as far as grains of hardness per gallon. After the project, the tests we've been taking has been about 10 to 15 grains of hardness per gallon, so it's much, much better quality water. So if all you're worried about is protecting your appliances and fixtures, that quality water should do it. Now, your water softener puts out water about 5 grains of hardness per gallon, so it's not the same as soft water, but it's so much better. I'm getting wonderful comments from people that live out in that area. And we've seen a lot of people turning in their water softeners because we offer $300 if they demolish them. Okay. Now, we also have landscape hardware rebates, as I mentioned earlier. One of the things we've seen a lot of rebates on are these MP rotator sprinklers. The great things about those is they put water out at a low volume, which is really good for our area because we have clay soil. The water does not absorb that, the ground doesn't absorb that water very easily. So those pop-up sprinklers that most people have put too much water on at once and create runoff. And that water's doing nobody good when it runs off into the street. So these new sprinkler heads will put water on at a low volume and allow it to soak in easier. And also it's much more precise. We also have rebates on hose timers. A lot of people have those drag-around sprinkler heads still, and the rain sensors, as I mentioned earlier. We have free water-wise landscape plans. We had a local landscape architect, Rosemary Bridwell, many of you know, designed 3 different designs for us. Those are like $500 values, and we can give those out to people. Not that you have to follow them, per detail, but it has a great plant list. It'll give you some ideas, and those are free. Those are on our website, or I can send them to you. We have a demonstration garden over at Dunn Park, a reference library. We offer workshops, educational programs, things like that. We do a lot of outreach. We have a TV show on CMAP called Going Green, which is not always about water, but it's about environmental issues that affect us here locally and globally. And then I also sit on the Green Business Committee at the Chamber of Commerce, and that's a program to help businesses use our resources in an efficient manner that not only helps your bottom line, but helps us environmentally as well. So we try to get involved in all those things, and I like to think that I'm a resource for people. I don't know everything in water conservation, but the good thing about it, we got a gentleman from Santa Clara here, is it's not proprietary information. So what I don't know, I can reach out to people in Santa Clara or Contra Costa or Sonoma and find out answers for you. So if you need any information or need help, let me know. Okay. I think that was my last slide. Yes, now we're open for questions and comments. And I'll let anything particular for any manager, I'll get them up here.
So at this moment, we'd like to open the floor to questions from our attendees to any of our first 4 panelists. Anyone?
No questions.
Here.
Hi.
Get you, John.
Yes. It still has that chloride component in it. There you have sodium chloride or potassium chloride, but it's much better than sodium or salt. So yes, it is. The problem is potassium is probably 3 times more expensive than salt, but it does help out a little bit. Anybody else?
I do need to ask you all, if we can, please use the mic for the Q&A. That way we make sure that we have the highest quality possible
Dan has a
video.
question back
Mr.
there.
DeVries, Planning Commissioner.
So Jeff, did I understand you correctly that next year there will be no blue valve allocations, but you're going to backfill the system with water that you have banked other places? That's really expensive.
We don't know for sure. Is this on? Yeah, it's working. Okay. My initial allocation, I can tell you, for agriculture, that's what they do is the way that the Bureau allocates water is that our water year begins March 1st. So at the end of February, they'll come out with their initial allocation. And they'll continue to modify that allocation usually through March, April, and May. So what we're hoping is that I already know that my initial allocation for ag is going to be 0 unless there is some miracle that happens, and it might be 5%. What we're hoping is that as the Bureau is able to backfill and generate water supply next year in the spring, that by sometime April or May, that the agricultural water supply that I'm going to get, the allocation may be up to 15 or 20%. That's if it's a wet year. They don't run into a lot of environmental issues like smelt actions or salmon actions that shut the pumps down. And so that's what we're looking at. What I'm planning on doing, what I've got is I've got some additional water that I've secured from the North Delta area that we bought this year. And it's actually being moved right now into San Luis Reservoir. And that's that water that I was talking about that's about $1,100 an acre foot. I've also got some water that I transferred to Santa Clara, and they're going to be giving me some of that water back. So I'm going to take that water, put it together, and then that's what I'm going to offer to the ag customers, and that's what we're going to have the meeting for in the next week or so, is to let the ag customers know that that water's available, how much it's going to be, and if they want to secure that water now, that they can do that, and we will make it available to them starting, at the beginning of next year.
And then hope and wait and see what happens towards May.
Correct.
Okay.
At least at this point, what we're looking to try to do is to try to give the agricultural growers some assurance that there will be some water there that they can make their planting plans on, because they're in a process right now of setting what their planting plans are going to be for all of next year, so that they need to know if they're going to have water supply and how much that's going to be.
Thank you very much.
Miss Eglin, I'm on my way over to you. Valerie?
This will get you exercise today. I was wondering the depth of private wells and where testing should occur, and do you have any sense that there's going to be any monitoring of private wells on ranches and et cetera around the county?
Well, as far as the depth goes for any individual private well, it depends on where you are. The best way for you to know what the depth of your well is to have somebody go out and actually do a test it to see what the water level is when you're not operating the well. The other way you can do is to get a general idea is to use our annual groundwater report and to use basically those charts that I had up there and figure out where you are in the basin, and then you can get a general idea of what the depth to water is in your area. As far as regulating, I think is what you're going to. There is some state laws that have come out. It's called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, that all groundwater basins are going to have to follow if they are a high to medium priority basin. If you're a low priority basin, you won't have to do it. San Benito, our basin here is a medium priority basin, so those regulations have to be in place by 2022. The San Benito County Water District is going to be the agency that oversees that program, but we don't know what the issues are going to be yet. As long as the basin is in balance and it's not a severe problem, then there won't be any regulations on how much water people can use. So that's the direction that we're going to be going, is trying to make sure that we continue to manage the basin such that there aren't any restrictions on anybody's water use.
And testing? What about testing our water?
Testing of your individual wells, that's up to the customers, the individual landowner, to test your well. Again, in the annual groundwater report, every 3 years, the Water District does an update on water quality. So you can go to the annual groundwater report, and depending on, and pick out that specific year, and there's a pretty detailed study in there about what the water quality is in the basin. Again, you can figure out where you are in the basin and get general idea of what hardness is, nitrates, any other contaminants that are in that area. But as far as specific data for your well, you'll have to do it yourself.
Questions? Supervisor Barrios.
Thank you so much. Jeff, I know there's no state regulations for private wells, but it's my impression that there are some private well owners that don't feel or don't know that they have to be conserving water. So are you doing any outreach so that they get an idea that they have to do their part, just like urban use and in other regulated areas?
We always encourage folks to use water wisely and not to waste it. As far as again, if somebody comes to us and asks us, we will, Sean will work with them, or the district will work with them on how to, what they can do. But as far as an outreach program to the individual landowners, no, we have not done that. And because our basin is actually in such good shape, and there really isn't a severe problem with water supply in our basin, we haven't felt like we've needed to do that. If you look again, like if you look at our basin, it's still in very good shape. We're not anywhere near what the Central Valley is, where they've got subsidence issues, they're running out of groundwater. Our basin is still very full compared to what it could be. Again, if you remember, I said, in areas of our basin, it was 150 feet lower than it is today, back in 1975. So we were able, with the federal project coming in, we were very successful in refilling the basin. So we haven't had any issues, and we don't really feel like there's a need to put any restrictions on anybody.
Hi. How will your groundwater management change with the implementation of Sigma, or do you foresee great changes, or?
The management of the basin itself is probably not going to change. We're going to continue to manage the basin like we have to try to make sure that we're balancing it, that we're bringing in that 20,000 acre feet a year that's needed on average. Obviously, in droughts, you can't do that. But when the water supply is available, we intend to continue to do that, bring the water in, store it. We haven't been doing the active percolation that we used to do, primarily because the groundwater basin had filled up and there wasn't really a need to do that anymore. And the second reason is that we haven't had the water supply. It's better to deliver it directly to the customers than to put it into the ground. So basically, for every acre foot of water that we deliver directly is an acre foot of water that's just like percolated. It leaves an acre foot of water in the ground that somebody hasn't pumped, so it balances the basin out. No, we're not going to change our management of it, because I think we're doing a pretty good job now. And I don't know what the regulations or management of the individual wells will be. Again, as long as the basin is in good shape and it's not in overdraft, and then there will be no reason to put any restrictions on anybody's individual use.
Can I ask another quick question?
Certainly.
If it's a medium priority basin, will Sigma impose something?
They're going to, being a medium priority basin, you have to come up with a plan to manage the basin. So we intend to do that, and we're going to we'll be starting to do that this year, to develop the plan in order to be able to implement that. What it is yet, I can't tell you, because we're still trying to figure out how the state's going to, what the regulations are going to be.
Any further questions?
In what years does the district actually export water, or is that all done on paper? I mean, is there a method to getting water out of the basin in the wet year for someone else to purchase, or?
No. Well, there is a method to do that if we chose to do it, but because we rely on that extra water, what we'll do is, in years when there is excess water that we can't use that in our contract, or when there's extra water to purchase, what we'll do is we will either transfer it to other agencies. We work very closely with Santa Clara, because Santa Clara Valley Water District is our partner in the federal project. So what we do is we work together. If Santa Clara has space and availability to use that water in any particular year, I'll transfer it to them. And then in years when I need the water back, they'll transfer water back to me. And that's how I'm able to supply some of that water that I talked about that we're going to have this year for the growers next year, is those transfers back and forth. We typically, there was a few years back in the 90s when the district sold water that was in excess, but we won't be doing that anymore. We need the water we have available to us is too precious today to sell it to somebody else. We're actively out buying water from other agencies, is what we're doing now.
So again, it's more on a paperwork aspect. It's not.
It's a transfer.
Yeah.
The water will, we will actively move water back and forth, move it to another agency, but it's with the expectation that that water is going to come back at some point. It's more of a sharing of water and balancing it, being able to store it someplace because we've run out of space to store water. And it's like moving the water that I talked about that's in the Semi-Tropic Water Agency. That was transferred out, but basically there's an obligation to get that water back at some point, and that's what we plan on doing.
And when you indicate that zero allocation for ag from the feds in any given year, so that means all the water that is used for ag basically is pumped out of the system that's already being depleted now?
No. There'll still be surface water delivered. Again, that's there's surface water that we have stored in other agencies or other places. We call that water back, and that's what we use to be able to deliver to the agricultural customers.
Mr. Ray Pierce, Planning Commissioner. Thank you for very much for coming out today. You guys had a late night last night.
Yes, we did. Because I am a planning commissioner, my question would be, is there, and I realize this is a moving target, but is there a safe cap of a population total that we should be looking at for this groundwater basin? I said safe.
Yeah, that's like Dawn mentioned earlier, the water agencies are not planning agencies. The only planning that we do is to plan to meet the water demand that the counties or the cities have in their general plans. And so that's the way that we're working towards it. As far as a safe cap, I couldn't, we have sufficient water supply now to meet the demand for the homes that are planned to be built in the next, through 2020. And again, we're always working on projecting what that water demand is going to be and looking at how we're going to meet it in 2020, 2025, 2030, and to have programs and projects in place to be able to do that.
Valerie?
Sean. I wanted to ask Sean Novak about Water Conservancy and plumbing. Has there been any problem within the city or homes that where there's not adequate flushing of pipes where we're having problems in the city?
No, Bill, I'm not aware of anything like that. I do know, in the late terms of Governor Schwarzenegger's term here, a bunch of new legislation was passed, and a lot of it was the green plumbing codes. So one of the things all this new development is under is, you got to have the low-flow toilets, faucets, showers. There's a landscape ordinance in place that minimizes the size of turf. You have to have a water budget for each property. So Don did a calculation. Some of these new homes use about half as much water as some of the older homes made, that were built in the 70s through the 90s, all the way up to just recently. So these new homes are much more efficient. But I'm not aware of that being any issues. I haven't heard that from the city manager at all.
Sean, can you cover the laundry to landscape program you'd like to have here?
Well, I'd like to have it. It was, this is about gray water, and the only thing you really don't need a permit for is what they call laundry to landscape, which is basically just taking water from your washing machine and using it outdoors. There are some safeguards that you must follow that need to be in place. We really don't have any guidelines for that here locally. I've been working with the city and county trying to implement that, but we don't have any as of yet. But there is a really great organization called the Central Coast Graywater Alliance, which has workshops over in the Monterey, Santa Cruz area, and they can assist you with, they have videos, how-to videos, information on gray water and things like that. So if you're really interested, they're a great group.
We also have our sponsor, Marcy Houston, with M&M Plant Sales, and she's an expert on drought-tolerant landscapes, recommendations for native species and low water use plants.
Yeah, Marcy's been a big help to our programs because she is a good resource in town here that does know about plants. My knowledge is limited, and it's getting better, but she's an expert, and I go to her a lot. We've had a couple workshops at her business, which have been well attended, so It's nice having you around, Marcy, so thank you.
Supervisor Munzer.
So I guess this will be for both Don and Jeff. Piggybacking off of Ray's question, so you guys are taking a look at the county's new general plan, the city's general plan, and AMBAG's, Association of Monterey Bay Area Government population forecast in your planning for the future water needs.
In the current plan, everything in our current Hollister urban area plan, everything within the boundary is what we're planning for as far as water supply. In the new general plan that you've just adopted, there are areas of growth that you have identified that are not within in the Hollister urban area. So that has not been accounted for in this project's water supply. It would help if if the county got together with us and identified all of those areas, and then what you expect that you're actually going to be building out there, and how that water supply, how we're going to be able to meet that demand. Again, our goals and our mission is as water agencies is to try to meet the demand that we see that's coming, and not to determine where that growth is going to occur.
Any further questions? I think that's a really excellent segue. Sure.
So I talk to a lot of growers, and one of the common themes, and a lot of them have seen this recently, has been growers digging deeper wells. It's just folks are either digging deeper and there's issues related to water quality or availability. How does that basically impact the lay of the land and your operations?
The installation of new wells, the way it affects our agency is it puts more demand on the groundwater basin. Whenever there is a drought and there's less imported water to be delivered, then the fallback is the groundwater basin. So as we've gone through this drought, you've seen that there have been a lot of new wells, and the well drillers everywhere in California are very busy right now to be installed to be able to basically meet the same demand that they've got for water. And so what we have to be able to do is, there's nothing for us to do immediately. It's to be able to make up that deficit that's because of the drought. The individual wells don't really cause a problem, and again, there's not a lot of people drilling new wells because they have to go deeper. Again, our groundwater basin is fairly full. There aren't any issues with anybody breaking suction or their wells going dry, really. If there is an issue with a well, it's usually because it's an old well in the construction and the well has just failed. It's not because there isn't sufficient water there.
So rumors of wells going quote unquote dry are probably just talks.
In San Benito County, in our basin, I have not heard of anybody's well going dry because of the groundwater basin dropping significantly. There are wells, again, that fail, and just because they're old wells, and they start sanding or caving in, and they have to be replaced.
Last call for questions. Sir?
Is there anyone in the wastewater industry represented here? I mean, as far as the recycling water and efforts in that area, has someone talked to that?
Well, there is a representative from Veolia here. They operate the city of Hollister's wastewater plant. Don operates the Sunnyslope plant. As far as recycled water goes, the district does have a recycled water project that we're working with the city on, and actually I've got a bid opening today at 2 o'clock for the construction of the distribution system that will go out Wright Roads in Buena Vista. So what we intend to do is basically use as much of the water from the city's wastewater plant to be able to deliver to that recycled water project. All of the projects that we've got are all integrated. the Hollister urban area water treatment plants are a key to making our recycle water project successful, because without the surface water plants delivering high quality water to the city's customers, they would be using highly mineralized groundwater and a lot of water softeners to be able to soften the water, and basically the water comes out of the treatment plant at a TDS level that's about 1100 TDS, which is a little bit too, not a little bit, it's pretty high. And so it doesn't really make it suitable for recycled water. The project that we've got, because we've integrated all these things together, is going to be delivering water that's probably closer to 700 TDS when it comes out the back end of the plant, and that's what we're expecting. We're hoping to be able to get, maybe up to 1,500 acre-feet of water supply out of that, of the recycle water project, which is about 10% of our demand for agricultural water, that 1,500 acre-feet.
So the supply will go to agricultural use?
The supply is intended to go to agricultural use. The building a recycle water project or for urban use is very expensive. Primarily because you're very limited on where you can use the recycled water. It's typically used on parks or green belts or things like that. So you have to build a lot of infrastructure to be able to deliver water to those areas, and then there's not a lot of water that's used. It's a lot more efficient to build a recycle agricultural project, because you can concentrate the water, you have more water delivered, and you have to build a lot less infrastructure.
One thing Sunnyslope was doing, we'd looked at recycled water at our wastewater plant. It's just too expensive right now. Doesn't mean it won't be a future option. It's something we'll look at in our update of our master plan collectively with the agencies. It's a source, and the use was going to be for irrigation of the Ridgemar Golf Course, was the thought to be where the customer and the good, that might benefit our water, because that might offset surface water that they currently use when they get it for irrigation that we could use for serving our customers for drinking water. But the other thing that we're doing planning wise is we're requiring development on and the kind of the Fairview Road area to put in recycled water pipeline, or really we see it as an alternate pipeline for putting large irrigation customers, parks, schools, landscape strips on groundwater, so that we can direct the surface water to our, to customers for drinking purposes, not all just landscape. So we're doing little things that we won't benefit for some time, but we're trying to set up where maybe we can start segregating some of those irrigation customers onto lower quality groundwater, so that we can deliver higher quality water to our residential or for drinking purposes. So little things. Yeah, they are. It could be, we're getting pieces of it and we're requiring it in development so we can slowly get it in. I actually have plans to connect it and have required it of one project where it comes right to one of our wells, so we could at least move them onto well water. And then long term, if we end up developing the recycled water component, or if cities' recycled water pipelines get far enough east, we could make that connection. So it's important to put some of that into the ground, even though it might not be used in the short term, but long term it would.
Okay, my question is for Dawn, so I'm over here.
Oh, trying to figure out where you are.
I live in the Oak Creek area, and within 16 years, I know we're supposed to stop using our water softeners. I've replaced 3 water heaters and 2 garbage disposals, and they were both, I replaced 2, a water heater and a garbage disposal within the last 2 months. And I was told by the plumber that it was because of the hard water. So I'm supposed to stop using my water softener, but I have Sunnyslope water, and is that going to improve so that we can stop using our water softeners?
It has improved, and I'm biased in this. Since January, you've been getting essentially 100% surface water, and the mineral content in your water has dropped. So if you've just replaced appliances or disposal or something, it certainly could be from the water you've been receiving prior to that. I'd recommend you at least bypass your water softener and see what you think. I mean, I get customers who say they like the water that they're getting now in that area. They're getting surface water, and I have customers that swear it's no better. I have plumbers or appliance salesmen, water softener salesmen tell customers, no, your water hardness is still this number, and they give them numbers that are higher than our highest hardness of water has ever been, higher than it is if you were on straight groundwater. So I have to admit, I would suggest maybe you be cautious about what you believe from folks you know are trying to sell you something, but I think you ought to try it. The water quality is greatly improved. If you don't like it aesthetically, and I have family members who don't like it aesthetically, you know, then there's still a reason to consider it. If we don't get people out of their water softeners in the next number of years, the state's going to demand we do something more, and we're going to mandate it. And so we're trying to get folks, we're playing the soft approach now, but you really don't need it for your appliances, for, you know, spotting on everything. It's not as soft as your water softener makes it, but it's certainly soft enough for general purposes, not going to wear out your appliances. We are working on a second plant in partnership with the city and San Benito County Water District with the idea that that water will get more distributed surface water to more of our customers, more of the city's customers. Right now, you have to be close to our surface water plant or in the Ridgemark, Oak Creek, Quail Hollow to get that water, but you're getting the better quality water, and you have been since really middle of December of 2014.
And Julie, I want to tell you, if you need help setting it to bypass, we can help you with that, and we also carry a hard water tester on our truck, so if you want us to test it right at your house so you can see for yourself what it is, we're unbiased, so we'll show you what it is, and you can see exactly what it is. All right?
If we can, please give a nice round of thank yous to our first panelist speakers. I hope you agree that we're very lucky to have such an exceptional level of professionalism at our water agencies. I think we're in really good hands, and I'm hoping that you please thank them, get one of their business cards if you'd like to continue interacting with them. I also like to acknowledge Jose Rodriguez. He's here with Viola Water, the operator of the Hollister wastewater treatment plant. He's offered to give tours and give any information following the meeting. I'd like now to welcome our interim county planning director, Mr. Byron Turner, to give an update about what's been going on with our 2035 general plan update and growth and plan projections and how the county is prepared. Byron?
Thank you. So, yes, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Byron Turner with the County Planning Department. It used to be County Planning Department. Now we are the County Resource Management Agency. I've heard a lot of talk today about this document, the 2035 General Plan. This was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in July after many years of working on it. And it's our guiding document with regard to growth in the county. Well, you cannot have that conversation without discussing water. So there are multiple policies in this document, goals and policies in this document regarding water use. So one of the elements in the new general plan is the public facilities and services element. We've heard about how the water district uses our general plan. One of the goals in the general plan is to ensure reliable supplies of water for unincorporated areas to meet the needs of future agriculture and development while promoting water conservation and use of sustainable water supply sources. So with each goal in the general plan comes a set of policies. So with the policies, the first policy under that goal is support the water districts and work with the water districts and coordinate with the water districts. Another policy is interagency cooperation and to, again, support the water district in what they do to conserve water and plan for future use. Encourage drought contingency and secure planning, to promote recycling, to manage groundwater to keep it viable, and then also continue to implement SB 610, which requires that for all new development that we assess that there's existing adequate water supply for new development, and that to study that effect of new development on existing water users too. Another goal in our general plan is to maintain adequate service for existing and future uses while improving efficiency. And we heard a little about single-use wells. One of the policies is to discourage single well use and to consolidate users on water systems. Regarding wastewater, which was brought up, use reclaimed water when we can. Another policy that we should be thinking about whenever we approve development or look at new development in the county. There's also a natural and cultural resources element. The goal there is to protect water quality and quantity in the natural water bodies and groundwater basins to avoid overdraft of groundwater resources. There are multiple policies under that goal with regard to groundwater recharge, studying the groundwater, again, using the SB 610 process, to provide public education to encourage existing homeowners to conserve through landscaping and plumbing. We've had multiple meetings with Sean about what we can do in the community, both on the educational level as well as through ordinance. We are working on a gray water ordinance in this county. We've had multiple meetings. It's more it's a complicated issue because there's environmental health is involved, the ag community is involved, as well as the building department is involved. So we are working on getting something, though, to the board very soon with regard to gray water. We're also working on the water efficient landscape ordinance. That's something that is state law, but we haven't formalized it for the county yet, but it is something that's required and we still look at for all this new development that's going on. Require reclaimed water when feasible, encourage rainwater catchment, and encourage shared water systems again, multiple times throughout the document, different issues, policies that are in our general plan. With regard to growth projections, we've got the Santana Ranch project that's over 1,000 units. Yes, we're looking at probably a 10-year build out at least on that one, and it is market driven. Last night, the Planning Commission approved the Del Webb at San Juan Oaks project. That's another 1,000 units to be located right here. We also have in the pipeline probably 500 or so residential lots that have yet to be approved, but are in various stages of analysis through the county that will eventually make it to the eventually make it to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So water is important. We certainly look at it as part of our document. If you have any questions about what's in this document or what the future growth of this county is looking like right now, or what efforts we take to coordinate with the water districts and organizations like Sean's, we're available for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Turner? Lloyd Lowry?
Byron, can you give us a couple of examples of the application of your consolidation policy?
Well, this is a policy that's a new policy in our general plan. So I would say that it hasn't necessarily been tested yet, but one of the things that we are doing is discouraging large lot subdivisions. The days of dividing up the county into 5-acre pieces are long gone. Now we're looking at directing growth where services are taking place, or when growth happens that they're able to service themselves without being on individual wells and individual lots. When you create a subdivision with a bunch of 5-acre lots, often they will all have their own well in the past, and we're not, while I do anticipate we will still get subdivisions in with 5-acre lots in the 5-acre zoning. We'll be looking to require a shared water system.
Mr. Turner, how about explaining why you think we didn't get any comments after the approval of the final general plan? We were very concerned about it, as the winery corridor is very important to the future of this community, for tourism, for hospitality, for good jobs. And we received a 135-page letter from the Sierra Club. So we're really nice to see you didn't receive any comments.
I think that it's a good document. And I think that we did a lot of work to make sure that it would stand up to any challenge that was taken. And it's a document that at the end of the day satisfies the needs of multiple groups, including there's policies in there that the Sierra Club should be happy about. There's policies in there that the rest of the community should be happy about, and it moves us forward in the right direction. even if there are policies and goals in there that not everyone can agree on.
Can you tell us some more about the status of the proposed Del Webb development and where that might be going?
Last night at the Planning Commission, the specific plan, the Planning Commission recommended to the Board of Supervisors that they approve the specific plan, the general plan amendment, and the zone change. That recommendation will go to the Board of Supervisors in November. And if the board gives them positive vote, also development agreement, part of that action as well. If the board gives them a positive vote, that will effectively change the general plan and implement a specific plan for that area. And then we will go back to the Planning Commission with the map, take a look at the individual lots, the layout of the site, and the map will then be approved, and they're looking to start building next year.
And how about the Unigen seed facility expansion?
That was also approved last night. Expecting several, 40 or so new jobs, including other seasonal jobs as well. There was some discussion about water usage with that one and drainage and how it affects the area, but the conditions of approval should take care of those conditions.
Any more questions for Mr. Turner? Please give him a hand. Oh, sorry. Well, sorry. Supervisor Munzer has one last question.
Byron, I get asked a lot why we are approving so many buildings in the middle of a drought. And my answer has always been that the applicant has to approve that there's water to service their project. Can you go into the process that they have to go through to establish that there is water to support their projects?
Yeah, that is correct. They do have to show a lot of, often it lands on the water district to show that they have the ability to support the project. But a good example, last night at the Planning Commission meeting, we brought in a water expert just for that purpose to describe to the Planning Commission that the water supply assessment that was done and then peer reviewed by the county was acceptable and showed that there was ample water for the project. And with each and every development, we go through that process. I'm not the water engineer. I would defer to some of these gentlemen at this table as far as what exactly gets looked at, but we hire the applicant hires the people through the county to make sure that those that the assessment is a quality document, and that we are can positively bring it to the commission and board and say that this is not going to negatively impact our water supply.
Mr. Pierce?
And actually, Greg did a great job last night of answering and fielding all the questions that we had for him. I was wondering in future if we could get this group together with the County Planning Commission in maybe a special meeting to where we could discuss future growth in water. Maybe I'd be putting that to the supervisor here.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and we can work with the water districts to work on bringing them to the Planning Commission. Yeah.
I know good communications firms might be willing to help you. But Byron, regarding the reimbursement agreements with the developers and investors hiring their own consultants for processing and doing the engineering reviews, can you cover what kind of oversight there is? It's been expressed by the community that the reviews might be slanted, et cetera. Can you explain your process?
We enter into a reimbursement agreement with the developer to cover all costs, cover staff costs as well as consultant costs. So any analysis that they bring to the table, we then hire a peer reviewer. And so in this case, I believe Todd Engineers did the water supply assessment for the development. Then we hired Tully and Young. Again, the applicant paid for this, but they had no influence on who we hired. But we brought in Tully and Young, a respected water supply assessment firm, to then peer review and confirm the results of that water supply assessment. So it's paid for by the applicant, but nothing, the applicant has no influence over the process. They are considered county employees, the people we hire from the on the applicant's dollar.
Further questions for Mr. Turner? Let's try again with a warm round of applause for him. Thank you again, Byron.
I have a standard presentation where I talk about water supply and water quality issues, and I drilled it down a bit. So I'm going to gloss over a few things that are truly important, and I'm happy to take questions on them, but I wanted to leave plenty of time to talk more about what growers are doing in response to the drought and what they've been doing for quite a long time. So let's get started. So I'm starting a little bit with water quality. And the core of water quality for us here on the Central Coast, and really for the state of California, are basin plan amendments. And within basin plan amendments, I would say kind of the Bible are total maximum daily loads. And if you would, Chris, thank you. These are mandated by federal EPA, and what it means is there's only a certain amount of any pollutant that can go into a water body. Whether that pollutant is nitrates, whether it's pest management materials that are going into a water body, whether it's sediment, which can carry other things, whether it's turbidity and how the water's moving, whatever it might be, there's only so much in certain water bodies that the federal government says should be there. And so what they say is, regional boards go back and figure out how to manage this, so there's only so much, and figure out what our timelines and milestones are for that. Sometimes I think people look at TMDLs and think, oh, it's like a 30-year timeline. It's totally easy, but it's not, because your TMDL completely influences the Irrigated Lands Program. Who here's heard of the Ag Waiver? Right? So a waiver is a total misnomer, right? Because it's actually really hard to comply with for a lot of people. And that's one of our biggest challenges, is trying to make the ag waiver reasonable, right? Make it make sense for actually working with it on the ground. But TMDLs absolutely influence your ag waivers, so it's really important to keep an eye on them. One of the big ones that I'm working on right now is the Salinas River Watershed Sediment Toxicity TMDL, which is a mouthful. And that one is really important because there are materials that we use, specifically pyrethroids, that get carried off farms in sediment. And we don't want to get to a point where the regional board, through the ag waiver, says, you need to not use pyrethroids if you want to stay out of kind of that higher level of reporting. And so we're looking at some watershed management structures for our members that they can start being a part of, do some monitoring, looking at how to manage pyrethroids and erosion control, so we can start addressing this before it becomes a big part of the waiver. A few other things, again, glossed over, but surface water monitoring is also important, and this is a part of your Irrigated Lands Program if you're a grower. There are about 54 different sites throughout the region, and when I say region, I'm talking about the bottom piece of San Mateo County all the way down to the very north piece of Ventura County, so it's huge, right? It's like 450,000 irrigated acres. And we have surface water monitoring that helps us understand what's going on and what kind of impairments there might be on all these different waters. It's an important program, it's part of our regulation, and it informs a lot of things. So I'm going to talk a little more now about the ag waiver. And this order that we currently have, I would say, is very, very challenging. And in 2003, the state changed the way it looked at water coming off of a field. And that's really what this is. So there's really two ways to look at water impairment. There's point source and non-point source. So what do you think water coming out of a spigot off a building might be? Point source, right? You know exactly what's coming out. You know exactly where it came from. Agriculture is not that easy. Agriculture water could be coming from your neighbor's field or 3 neighbors up the hill onto your ground, right? You don't know. And so that's what makes it really, really hard sometimes to figure out kind of whose water is it, whose impairment is it, and how do we fix it? And that's a lot of what we're dealing with the ag order. Our organization has made a lot of comments noting how concerned we are with the current way that the ag order is being implemented. It's a lot of data that we don't think necessarily helps anybody understand impairment. We'd really like to see more coalition-based, watershed-based working groups that are really trying to address an issue on behalf of a number of growers in a watershed. It's not there yet, but we're working on it. A few other things just to be aware of. There's the Central Coast Groundwater Coalition. And this we were one of the founders on a couple of years ago. It's a way that growers are meeting their regulation. What's important about it is that we're creating contour maps. So a lot of the maps you saw today are contour maps, right, where they have those squiggly lines around them. And these maps help people understand different things about a water basin. In these maps specifically, you get to understand the level of nitrates in a water basin. And that's important. I mean, who here has heard about concerns about people drinking water that might have nitrates or arsenic or whatever it might be? This is our way of meeting our regulation and also helping to inform the community of areas that might have higher nitrates that are supplying domestic wells. We're not concerned in our organization about irrigation wells because pumping and farming is good, right? You want to reuse that. But in domestic wells where people could be drinking out of the wells, we want to make sure to be able to notify and help people understand that. So those are some of the maps we've created. Additionally, in general, it's really important for all of us to be looking at new technologies and new opportunities as we address some of these regulations. Somebody said earlier, like, you can try to fight the state, but it'll be hard. And that's true, right? It's better as much as we can be to be very proactive and to start building our own science, right? Building our own data so that we can share that. And that's where some of these contour maps have been effective. One of the things that we're doing is we created a group with Monterey County Farm Bureau and the Steinbeck Innovation Cluster, and it's called Ag Innovation Beat Connect. And it's a portal, it's really in a beta form right now, but it's a way for people who have great ideas. It could either be a project or a company that's been in place for a while or that has a new project to go and put their idea into our website portal, and then we'll distribute it to our members. It's really twofold. We get a lot of knocks on the door for my members saying, I got it. I got exactly what you need. Just throw this on your ground and your water's going to stay in the above the Vado zone. It's going to be great. Oh, but I've only ever done this in Iowa on corn, never on row crops. But it'll be great. And our members get a little frustrated, right? So what this is supposed to be is an opportunity for people who have a great idea to come in and use some metrics that we've put together to substantiate their idea. And if it looks good, then we'll probably try to do some trials privately or using our UC resources. Additionally, I mean, that's a collaboration amongst a number of trade associations. There's also a lot of things people are doing privately. One of our members, Ocean Mist Farms, has actually taken a machine. It sits on a flatbed. It sits on the side of one of their tile drain ditches, and it takes the nitrates, so nitrates in water, right, which comes from fertilizer. They're coming off their farm. It puts them through this system, which don't ask me to explain it too thoroughly. I'm not a scientist, but it takes 100 part per million nitrate water. It comes out at 0, generally, at least less than 1. It's an incredible system. A lot of our members have gone out and started looking at it, and it's one of the ways that a private company has started to look at how they can address water quality coming off their field. It's really neat. So that's the ag waiver. And now let's talk a little bit about the Salinas River. So the Salinas River is important. It's the lifeblood of the Salinas Valley. And I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think it's an important story to just share. For 8 years, we got our last permit to do maintenance in the Salinas River in 2003. That expired, I think, in 2007, and we didn't have a solution. And long story short, I think the way that a lot of endangered species laws and just different laws were being interpreted changed or changed themselves. And we needed to find a different way to maintain our river. You know, in the 1940s, people took bulldozers in and just cleared the whole thing out. And as you know, our river it's swaying, it's moving around. It moves every time you have a rain event, the direction of the river changes a little bit, right? And it's not the LA River, right? One, we can't cement it all down and make it straight. It wouldn't work. Our valley needs that river. It's the lifeblood because it's 90% underground and it recharges and it creates a lot of our supply. So we started talking about what do we do? 8 years, what do we do? And this is a great example of a public-private partnership. The Nature Conservancy came to us and said, we have an idea. And it's a multi-benefit approach, and it looks at your river in segments, and it means that growers who don't want to work or who do work together and figure out how to best manage for a flood so that it benefits everybody, basically. And we went in, we got an EIR with the county, we got it done. We did a pilot on 11.5 acres last year. It was great. We removed like 30 acres of Rhododendron, which is this awful invasive bamboo reed in our river, and we're getting it done. And now we're looking to get permits for 2016. A lot of people in our county are talking about El Nino and what does that mean with our river? And it's a scary proposition. What does it mean if we get a huge rain, right? It depends on where that rain's gonna sit. I would love to see that rain over the Nacimiento and San Antonio reservoirs, please, if I could have a straight line to God, but I don't. And so we don't know. And there's potential for us to look at an emergency permit on a few key pieces of the river if need be. This takes a long time, you know, and I mean, I think government takes a long time, and I think there are actually sometimes good reasons for that, but it's a little challenging. We've been working on this for 2.5 years by the time we get permits. Another thing that we're going to be looking at is the Interlake Tunnel, and this is a big project in Monterey County. What it's going to do is Nacimiento fills up fast, and due to a lot of legal regulatory requirements, we have to make releases out in Nacimiento. San Antonio doesn't fill up as fast, and we could use that. You know, storage is key, which a lot of people have talked about. So we're looking at a tunnel that'll draw the two together and allow water from Naci to go into San Antonio. It's great. It sounds so simple, right? Easy. But there are a lot of course, challenges and environmental factors, and there's this like white bass issue that's kind of making it a little hard, but everybody's looking into it. It's going to be a $60 million project in the end, but it would add 20,000 acre feet in potential storage annually if we could get this done, and it would be done hopefully in 2018. So that's a little bit on water quality and a little water supply. I'm going to hit back on water supply in a minute. But I want to talk about what growers are doing to conserve. So who's heard of drip tape? Right? That's just about everybody. And sometimes I think we hear about drip tape, and drip tape is a panacea, right? Drip tape is incredible. Drip tape gets everything done. And drip tape is great. It really is. We've seen huge water conservation in our region. So these are some stats. In '93, we used drip tape on 25,000 acres. Now we use it on 124,000 acres. It's fantastic. True story, one of my members came in and told me that on their 900 acres, they started transitioning to drip tape in 2009. They've seen an 18.5 reduction in water use since 2010 when they put it in, and they keep on adding, right? They didn't do it all at once. Their total reduction on annual since then is 362 acre feet. That's 170 Olympic-sized pools. That's huge annual reduction. So drip tape is a phenomenal tool, but it doesn't work in every instance, right? There are crops like spinach where you really can't use drip tape just because it's such a quick crop. And you still need to be able to use sprinklers to get a stand on your crops like broccoli, brassicas, lettuces, all of that. So it has to be used as part of a toolkit. It can't be seen as everybody just needs to put on drip tape. That's why you don't see every single acre using drip tape. So it's important for us to realize that as we talk about it. There are a lot of other tools. So understanding your landscape, understanding the heat and how water's coming off your field and how evapotranspiration works and the levels of soil moisture, all of those types of things. Those are really important tools for a grower to understand, and I think as time has gone on, more and more growers are starting to implement those into their management programs. Understanding phenology, so understanding your plant life and understanding how your crop is going to take up water and when it's going to need things, when it's going to need fertilizers and waters and things like that, and really educating ourselves on that. Fixing what's broken. It's simple, but just monitoring for leaks, looking at broken emitters, just figuring out when you need to make an update. Also using recycled water. we've talked a little bit about that. In Monterey County, we have the CSIP program, which is the Castroville Seawater Intrusion Program. And this was really put into place since the 1940s. We've had a seawater intrusion problem in Monterey County in the Castroville area, and it's coming into the Salinas area. It's still coming in. If you look at maps, the front is slowing, but it's still coming. But it would have been much more severe had we not put this program in place. What this does is delivers recycled water to over 12,000 irrigated acres in the Castroville area, moving out towards Salinas. It's a phenomenal program. They take wastewater from Salinas and the Monterey Peninsula, and they recycle it. It's very clean. We test it all the time, and we use it to irrigate our crops. All right, and then also trying out new technologies. And so here's Angel, who's actually here today. We talked a little bit about Hortow and some of the technologies he has with their lysimeters. And it's amazing, right? So these are lysimeters that go about 12 inches in the ground, and they give you reports back on your iPad or on your phone, and they help you understand how your plants are doing. And I mean, I know they've seen major irrigation efficiencies by understanding, so it's really bringing computer science into the field, new technologies. It's helping. I know one of their clients has said, this is like cheating, right? This is so great. I know everything that's going on. This is an important tool if growers choose to use it in that toolbox. And then changing it up. One of our members sent me this idea, this irrigation sprinkler. It's a new type. It's made out of plastic, so it's less likely to get stolen, which is a big issue. We see a lot of metals get stolen, I know, throughout the region. And it's giving them better coverage, less runoff, so there's all these new tools coming out all the time. It's an investment to try these things, but a lot of growers are. So that was a little bit about what growers are doing. I want to just touch really quickly on a couple of other things. So I mentioned CSIP, I mentioned that reusing water. So there's a source water agreement going on right now between these agencies in our area. And what they're looking at is taking water off of the Blanco drain. They're taking water out of all the produce washing, Taylor Farms, Fresh Express, all of our different processors who use quite a bit of water, estimated, I think, 3,000 to 3,500 acre feet a year. And we have a wash water system. Where's that water going? Let's make good use of it, right? Let's reuse it. So let's put it into that CSIP system. It's a win-win, because what they're talking about is taking some of that, sending 4,000 acre feet after CSIP is taken care of to the peninsula to meet some of their water issues, and then using the rest and looking at how we might be able to expand CSIP, right? So it's just making use of something we already have and making it efficient. We've also touched just briefly on the Groundwater Sustainability Act, and I'll just mention a few things. This act was put into place last year. It was signed by the governor. It was 3 bills that were put together to create, and it says that local agencies will develop plans. So it's looking at a 25 to 27 year plan, depending on kind of what priority you're in. And if you don't do this, then the state's going to come in and tell you how to regulate your groundwater. So I know my members don't want that, and I know we're actively working on figuring out how to address this, talking about who that agency should be. And it sounds like you've got it in the bag here. It's in the Monterey area. It's a little bit more. It's a little more complex in some ways, but we're working on it right now. So here's just a few of the timelines on that. Here, you're on that 2022 schedule, so you need to be able to tell the state that you have an agency in place in 2017, June of 2017. If you were on a higher priority basin like we are, we've just been determined to be in the Salinas River Basin, then you would need to have a plan in place by 2020. You here are 2022 because you're a medium basin. But this is very, significant. It's a new way of looking at groundwater management. And I think as I talked about the Salinas River and, we look at the basin as a whole in that area, right now estimates are overdraft is at about 17 to 24,000 acre feet annually. If we talk about the Salinas River and the Arundel-Dunax, which is that invasive reed, that invasive reed with other vegetation is conservatively sucking up 40,000 acre feet a year. 40,000. Then you add in the Interlake Tunnel, which, how much did I say that was, 20,000? That's huge, right? That addresses so much of our issue on that 17 to 24,000 acre feet. And there's been a lot of really progressive work done, but it's kind of bringing all of that together and substantiating all of that is where we really need to go, and that's what we're talking about. So here's some of the things that an agency could do, and it sounds like here, I mean, you've already got a law in place where it sounds like you're really kind of just chugging along and moving along. You might be looking at a few new things, but you've got a good plan in place already. In our area, these are all the things that an agency might be able to do, right? So we're going to be talking with stakeholders and addressing what should we do, what shouldn't we, and who's going to do it. So that's a big discussion right now, and it should be very interesting as we prepare to get the state something probably a year from now on who our agency is. So that was a lot, I know, in a short period of time, but I'm happy to answer questions.
If we can, we'll hold off on questions until we finish with Mr. Bianchi and Mr. Stake. That way we can get them all in one. I'd like to offer the floor now to Richard Bianchi. He is a farmer with Sabor Farms. He's also the chairman of the San Benito County Farm Bureau. Richard?
Can I hide behind here?
Absolutely.
I'm going to hide behind here so that way I don't have to traipse around. I have to say I'm a little disappointed having to follow Abby. It's a little tough. I am a farmer. I'm president of San Benito County Farm Bureau. And, you know, one thing as a farmer and as Farm Bureau in San Benito County, you need to understand as a farmer that the county would look much different without the imported water and the San Benito County Water District. Because if you go back, I mean, I was younger, but I was still in farming somewhat. Before the district, you know, water levels were, as Jeff said, 150 to 200 feet. The water levels in the wells were 150, 200 feet deeper than they were now. And certain areas of San Benito County have, the groundwater is not suitable for a lot of crops. And that's where the imported water made San Benito County that much more productive. So the county would look much different with zero water in the county. And to answer Jeff's question, if you're asking about water, yes, we'll take some. Because it's the quality of water coming from the imported water is that valuable to San Benito County. You got, you know, again, certain areas need it considerably more than others, and the district has identified that. But it's very important. There was other questions today, you know, testing and water quality. You know, as a farmer, especially in San Benito County, you test your soil every year. You test, you know, we test our water every year. What's coming out of every well, we test our crops. So we know what we're dealing with the soil, we know what we're putting on with the water, and we know how much we're putting on. You know, we're using, you know, farmers in San Benito County. I can speak to San Benito County, but I know it's throughout the region because it's not isolated. But you got farmers using weather services. You got farmers using evapotranspiration. You got weather, you know, on-site weather services, whether it be the Hortal or the John Deere systems, and they're given actual on-time, you know, what a plant is needing on a given day. And that's important, you know, even using weather services to where you're irrigating 2 days, 3 days before, so you're not irrigating in the heat of the day because you have to get the water out there. If you know what's coming, you can prepare for it. You can be more diligent with your water. You can use less water. Just a little fact, and we've thrown this around for years, but if you go back to the 70s in the tomato business, tonnage for tomatoes in the 70s was, you know, somewhere around, you know, I would say 15 to 22 ton to the acre. And water usage was probably somewhere between 4 to 6 acre feet of water to get those tons. And if you remember in the 70s, we went through another drought. And we're still growing some tomatoes in San Benito County and still getting that kind of tonnage. If you go fast forward to today, farmers are using 1.5 acre to 2 acre feet, and they're getting, you know, 55 to 75 ton conservatively. So, and the big change has been the progression from surface water, you know, flood irrigation to furrow irrigation to sprinkler to drip, and it just you get incremental increases along the way. So it's you know, the conservation has made it more profitable, but it's been a necessity. And it's just made things, I've used this term, farmers are somewhat like cockroaches. You tell us what conditions we're dealing with and we'll figure out how to deal with it. If we don't have good water, we're going to figure out how we can use the water that we have, but you got to know what the water you have looks like. With the water quality we're having, if you look around the county, your crops are curtailed to deal with the water that you're dealing with. And that's very important, because the wrong crop with the wrong water is a recipe for disaster. Regulatory-wise, we're Monterey County, San Benito County. We're all in the same boat. I sit on some of the boards with Abby. The groundwater coalitions and the groundwater monitoring. It's all something we all have to do. But again, if you know what you have, you know how you can address the issues. Yeah, I think that's about all I have. If there's any question, I think we have one more speaker.
Thank you, Richard. I think you all agree it's no longer just cows and plows anymore. These systems that these farmers work with are high tech. They're dealing with a lot of policy issues, outdoor nature issues, and the natural world, which is one of the reasons why we've invited Mr. Mike Stake. He is a wildlife biologist with the Ventana Wildlife Society. He's here to talk to you about the impact of water on our wildlife and a couple other issues and challenges that we're working with here locally. Mike?
Thank you. I'll anchor myself back here as well. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I've been allowed to promote a program that many people see as an unlikely collaboration. And I find that when we see overlapping interests among people, those are opportunities to collaborate and move forward through difficult times. I'm a wildlife biologist. Ventana Wildlife Society is a nonprofit organization based in Salinas. And our mission statement is to conserve native wildlife and their habitats. And in the last 5 years in particular, we're waking up to the idea that these habitats include our ranches, our farmlands, and those are areas too that we need to help conserve. And it's no secret that Ventana Wildlife Society is heavily invested in the California Condor Reintroduction Project. We manage the population here along the Central Coast in collaboration with National Park Service that manages the population at Pinnacles National Park. But we see that these birds fly across the Salinas Valley and use both areas, San Benito County as well as Monterey County. And we see them on your ranches. They're drinking your water. They are eating your food. In particular, they're scavengers that are eating ground squirrels. And so when ground squirrels are controlled, condors find that to be an easy meal. Well, sometimes they will ingest fragments of lead bullets and become sick. And so that is a concern. We've even had a condor die that had a .22 caliber bullet in its digestive tract. So we know that that's happening, and for that reason, Ventana Wildlife Society is very interested in collaborating with ranchers and landowners in San Benito County. Enough to where we started this free non-lead ammunition program in 2012. Since 2012, we have given away $100,000 worth of ammunition, copper ammunition mainly, to big game hunters and landowners throughout portions of California. And we continue to do that. So one of the issues that obviously affects a lot of landowners in San Benito County is ground squirrel control. And ranchers are being compelled to use non-lead ammunition, largely in part because of the condor and protecting the condor. Well, the bum deal here is that the very calibers used to control non-game mammals, your your 22 long rifle, your 17 HMR. They may be some of the more common calibers, but it's very difficult to find non-lead ammunition for those. For instance, 22 long rifle, if you were to go to your local shops, chances are you would not be able to find the two different products that are available in non-lead. And if you were to go online, chances are more than 90% of the online retailers would not have those products in stock. So Ventana Wildlife Society is wanting to bridge that gap. We have folks who are not even being given the chance to be compliant with regulations because they can't find the products that they need. And so we want to help that. So we are providing a resource for landowners, hooking folks up with retailers that have products in stock, and in many cases, just outright giving away the ammo. So, if you want the ammo, how do you get it? Now, there's a couple ways. First, for hunters, big game hunters, we have monthly online drawings. And I have some of these on the table here. To the left of the glass of water, feel free to pick one of these up. They're online drawings once a month. They're seasonal, so we're getting near the end of our cycle for this year. We'll start them up again in the spring. But you select the product that you're interested in from a drop-down menu, and you provide your shipping address. I get that information, and I put in an order through a retailer that has that product in stock. And then the retailer directly ships it to the participant, and it's paid for by Ventana Wildlife Society. This is all privately donated money for this purpose. So with this big game raffle, for instance, last month we had over 400 entries from hunters, and we were only able to select 150 of those to fill orders. But we're doing it again at the end of this month, so we'll get more product out. Now, for the ground squirrel control, for non-game mammal, that's a different category. The rimfire cartridges, we want to make those available free of charge as long as our funding and supplies last at any time, hunting season or not, at any time to San Benito County or Monterey County residents. So if you know someone, if you yourself are having that issue with ground squirrels and needing to control them, and you're having difficulty finding products, please talk to me. There are different ways we can get you the ammo. One way is to talk to me right after we're done. I have supplies with me. I'll just give it to you. I have 17 HMR. I've got 22 long rifle, 22 Magnum, and some 223. And so if you want some, I'll give some to you now. I won't ask for any personal information. Feel free. I'll be lingering here at this table for a few minutes afterwards in case you want to come by. If you have friends who might be interested in this as well, you can take some to those folks. If you want to promote this in your neighborhood, we'd love that. Another way is to contact me via email. And I'm providing my business card here on the information table. It has my email address. Send me an email with your needs, and I will either ship a product to you, ask you to come meet me to deliver it, or just order it from a retailer for you, or if we don't have any funds left or supplies left, I will help you find a retailer that has it in stock, give you that link so you can purchase it. We want everyone who has a need for it to be able to find products, because right now there's a huge gap, and ranchers are sort of getting the short end of this conservation stick here. So I appreciate your efforts, appreciate the value of our local lands in conserving wildlife. It's very important to us beyond the economic interests that are important for everyone. As Ventana Wildlife Society's mission statement shows, we're interested in you. We're interested enough to spend $100,000 on this. So we appreciate it. Keep on doing what you're doing through these difficult times. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. And I think it's one of the reasons why the San Benito County Business Council has been very important to this community, is because what we work on is interagency collaboration, forming relationships, and really finding a way for us to commonly find solutions versus going towards additional regulation, et cetera, and allowing for our community to thrive and to sustain itself. So to that point, I'd like to open up the floor to questions for our last set of panelists regarding wildlife, agriculture, regulation, policy. John?
I have a question for Mike. Mike, aluminum phosphide treatments for ground squirrels, does that poison transfer to the carrion-eating scavengers?
I believe a lot of different kinds of poisoning does translate, and I don't know specifically which ones. As a rule, we don't generally support the poisoning of ground squirrels because it is likely to transmit to condors and other scavengers, eagles, and so forth. And so actually Ventana Wildlife Society is very supportive of using shooting methods to control ground squirrels. Not to say that there aren't other options, but we're very wary of different chemicals.
If I might add to Mike's presentation, several months ago, I was with a couple of local hunters who met with representatives from his organization. And the purpose of the meeting was to discuss this issue of protecting condors from lead poisoning. And I want to report to you all that the two hunters that were in this meeting came into the meeting very skeptical and with no interest in worrying about condors. But after the meeting was over, you would recognize who these two people were, and they were 100% behind the protection of these birds. And I make this comment because it's really just a common interest of all of us. And if we understand the importance of protecting these birds and how simple it really is to do so simply by using copper bullets. And there's bullets that, I think that's 17 that you're talking about.
17 HMR.
Yeah, I think it comes with a plastic tip, and the bullet shatters upon impact with the ground. But the important thing I wanted to let you know about is, I didn't know this, but when a lead slug hits an animal, it doesn't remain a slug. It shatters into many, many little pieces. And so birds, when they go to eat that dead meat, they don't really know that they're eating anything other than the flesh of the animals. They can't spit out just a bullet. And so because they're in so many small pieces, the surface area of the lead itself is increased tremendously. So the birds can absorb this stuff very, very rapidly. So I didn't know anything about this, and the other two hunters didn't, but I think if the community understands how important this is, if you just share it with your hunting friends and support it, I think it's a good thing. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Just real quick, are there any nesting sites outside of the pinnacles in San Bernardino County for the condor?
I believe most of them are more on the Big Sur coast, but there are some that are on the west side of the Salinas Valley that are more on the inland side of the coast range. And so every year there's a different number of nesting pairs, and Sometimes pairs will not nest in a given season, and then a new pair will show up, and so these nesting numbers are always in flux. But currently, there aren't too many nest sites in San Benito County, but there are a small number.
Questions for our agricultural wildlife panel? Valerie?
Having a little acreage of my own, I see the deer and coyotes and bobcats, et cetera, around. And I'm wondering about water, since we're here about water, how one should provide or can provide, and the migration to the river nightly, you know, for whatever they need, if you have any ideas.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I speak to a lot of different people who say that they just don't see bobcats and wildlife as much in the last few years as they used to, and then some say that they see them more as these animals maybe in search for water are moving to areas where they can find it, and perhaps it's out of their normal home range. We do a lot of work on the Coast Range and the Santa Lucia Range, and there still are a number of water sources that are important and are being conserved for wildlife. I believe that the water sources that are on farms and ranches are very important from a condor perspective, because we actually follow these birds with GPS. They have a little GPS tag on their wing, and I sit at my computer in the Salinas office and I watch dots on a computer screen. So I know where these birds are going, and I know that they're going right to your water sources. Bald eagles, their population is up, even with the drought, and they're utilizing pretty much, they like to be near water, and they're utilizing any water source on a ranch or a farm. And so you'll see them nesting in your trees, and so those water sources are extremely important.
We have Pacific Grove Councilmember Casey Lucius.
Thank you. I have a question for Abby. I'm Casey Lucius, and I live in Monterey County, but we have many similar issues here in San Benito County. You talked about the tunnel project that could potentially bring an additional 20,000 acre feet. But you also mentioned it would cost $60 million. So I just wonder who pays the $60 million?
That's a great question. So currently, Monterey County Water Resources and our county and a number of leaders in the ag community are trying to figure out if there are ways, working with Assemblymember Luis Alejo, to address that and to receive some state funding. But, you know, as it's looking right now, it's probably going to go out for a Prop 218 vote, which means it'll be a vote of all of the people who would benefit from it, and the landowners and operators are going to probably pay for a great majority of it. Yeah, thank you.
I actually have a question. There's an old adage that whiskey's for drinking and water is for fighting. I have a question for Grower Shipper and the Farm Bureau. It's very clear that we need to advocate to be able to preserve the ability to be able to access our water rights and the water supplies that we have here. How can we collaborate with your agencies to lobby and educate our local, federal, state officials to be able to advocate for water?
I mean, for me, I'm a hay baler, and I love coming over here. So anytime that you have an informational gathering and you want to hear about kind of what's going on and what growers are doing, I'm always really happy, and we love working with Mindy and the Farm Bureau to do that and educate. So one, always kind of think of us if you could. Additionally, you know, Grower Shippers culture is one of collaboration, and we, you know, I think working with the Nature Conservancy, I'm going to be honest, I had some people who were like, what are you doing? You know, is this a group that we trust? And we have really come to our members, and with some really strong leadership from our board, said, you have to build these bridges. You have to try and build a culture of trust and work together if you're ever going to get anything done. And I mean, I think that that's a lot of what Ventana is doing as well. And we've really seen huge rewards with doing that and kind of creating strange bedfellows. We've been really pleased with our relationship there. We're happy. We really enjoy kind of working together and working with your agencies, educating our legislators and regulators. So just call us anytime.
From the Farm Bureau perspective, I got kind of a long-winded answer, but ditto. No, really it's about information. I think San Benito County, I think we kind of do a better job than a lot of counties because it is so transparent and there is a lot of interaction between agriculture, industrial, and residential. But I'll relay a story. I write an article every month for the Farm Bureau newsletter, and I got a call several months ago. I wrote something about, to the effect of, hopefully the developments going in Hollister, I hope that they're thinking about water, in the future as much as, farmers are, to summarize. And I got a call from one of our members, and he said, hey, I read your article. He said, I'd like to sit down with you and talk. So I did. Actually, we came up here and sat down, and he was spearheading a major development, and he kind of laid it out, what the whole development, what the hoops he had to go through to get his development passed. I was impressed. He told me about the basin plan. He said the reuse water, low flow, blah, 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 right on down the line. And it was, I went away kind of feeling a little bit stupid, to be honest, which isn't hard, but that's another. So, but my point is, I think, information and conversations is probably the two biggest. I see, if we all realize that we're in this together, and this is Farm Bureau's stance, is if we're all in it together, then we're going to move in the right direction.
So it's important to, if you'd like to connect with Richard and Abby, please do so after the meeting, as well as check out their websites. I do encourage you to please join their organizations to get within the communication loops, join subcommittees, etc. I also invite you all to attend our County Farm Day, which is usually held the second week of March every year. I host a VIP tour and a lunch in collaboration with the Farm Bureau and all of the supporting sponsors. Abby and Richard have been very active within that group, as well as Allison Clark with Ag Credit and Mindy Sotelo, educating a lot of the teachers. Any further questions of any of our panelists? I'd like to thank all of our sponsors for the event today. And if you would like any further information regarding the San Benito County Business Council and what we're up to, please give me a call, 831-524-0408, or check out our website, sbcbusinesscouncil.com. We do meet once a month, and we usually tackle some really big picture issues facing San Benito County. The latest has been impact fees, and our year-round target this year is think locally, buy locally, working with your local officials and staff and coordinating to develop common solutions. And then towards the end of the year, we're collaborating with the Community Foundation of San Benito County regarding giving and volunteering locally, as at least 60% of our residents, we estimate, commute out of our county every day to go to work. And we need them to be engaged here so we can grow and facilitate businesses here and work together as a community to have a better life for our families and our children. So then again, I'd like to thank you all for coming today. Please look for this event online with CMAP, cmaptv.com, for going back to check this information in the future. This will also be aired on YouTube. So again, thank you very much for your time today, and I appreciate you all coming. Thank you.